We are live for another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm joined by my guy, Uncle Wheezy. It's been a minute, Wheezy, since we've broken down a card together. How are you feeling about this card? And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, you got it, man. UFC Houston's got 14 fights on it, and we were just talking about it briefly before the show started. A lot of competitively lined fights. A lot of fights where both fighters are going to have a path to victory. Even the one that you're looking at on the screen where you got a minus 750 favorite, if she trips and falls and Juliana Miller falls on top of her, there's a potential path to victory there. So it's going to be fun to break down these fights. Let's see what each one of us has, and if we can come to a consensus on some good, solid plays for this week.
Yes, sir. It's honestly, now that you said that, like both of these fights, like we'll talk about it. Yeah, the favorite should win, but theoretically, both underdogs have a path.
Yeah, right. Right. You got to love that, right? I mean, because it even gives some hope to the people that are playing the value plays, so to speak. So we'll see how this one shakes out.
All right, let's jump into it then. Let me pull up a few of these comments first. Thank you guys all for tuning in and watching us talk some fights. Sean Strickland, champion. Okay. Coming back for the belt. What up, JB? Good to see you in here. My guy, K-Bands. Good luck to you as well, my brother. Drone Rookie. Good to see you in here. Drinking No Things, my favorite name in YouTube. Let's go. All right. So first fight of the night, we've got Carli Judice versus Juliana Miller. Judice, she's going to be 5'2" 26 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Miller, 4'3" She's going to be 29, so she's 3 years older. Same height, and she's going to have a 2-inch reach disadvantage, I think. My eyesight's not what it used to be. Yeah, okay. Wheezy, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, striker versus grappler matchup where neither one of these ladies has a whole lot of MMA experience. Carli Judice, only 3 years of professional MMA experience, and before that, she was an athlete. She was a softball player, so she's new to the sport. And Juliana Miller also has 7 fights, but she was also in the Ultimate Fighter House, which is like a crash course on MMA, and she wound up getting to the final of that competition and actually winning it. So she showed some improvement there while she was in the house, but then she has not been active for the last couple of years due to injuries and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, Carli needs to keep this fight standing. Juliana desperately needs to get this fight to the ground because she has no chance to win minutes or moments at distance striking range against Carli. I have got to tell you, Juliana has some of the worst striking in any division in the UFC. So she's going to really need to sell out for takedowns. But Carli's shown good takedown defense at the UFC level over, 3 fights in the UFC, and her one Dana White's Contender Series fight. She's defending takedowns at an 81% clip, only spending 13% of her UFC octagon time being controlled by her opponents. So, and she knocks everybody out. If Carli wins, she wins by knockout. And we've seen Juliana Miller just block punches with her face. Less than 40% distance striking defense, my man. The divisional average is 60%. So that's how bad the distance striking defense is for Juliana Miller. So, yeah, I mean, I like Carli to win here, not surprisingly. But you know what the best bet of the fight might be? Might be like a Juliana Miller by submission. Probably get it at better than plus 1,000 on the regional books, and, throw a quarter unit on it. It could be a big hit if Carli makes any mistakes. And don't forget, she throws a lot of kicks, so she might wind up on her back at some point here.
Yeah, I was just looking at their nicknames, and I was thinking to myself, one of these is so accurate, and the other is so inaccurate. Judice, she's crispy. Her hands are nice, and Miller is everything but a killer. But
yeah,
I remember watching Judice's last fight. I was camping, and I was just on my phone watching it alone. And I was just watching, and I was like, she's killing her. Like, she's just killing her. And she looked so good in that fight. I know Cagliari's like nothing special, but like She's probably around the level of Miller, honestly. I'd say about around there. Miller maybe bigger, more physical, maybe a better grappler when she's on the ground, but I just don't really know what Miller can do here. Her wrestling's not good enough, I don't think, to get Judice down. Very athletic, very good responses from Judice, very good reactions. So I don't really think Miller's going to be getting her down. If she gets her down, I don't really see her keeping her there if she doesn't get the sub quickly. And on the feet, like Weezy was saying, like everybody's talking about this week, I don't think Miller has anything for her. Maybe if she was more defensively sound, maybe I'd be a little bit more comfortable with maybe taking a dog shot, hoping she gets her to the ground. But she's a punching bag, and I just don't think she's going to be able to take the shots. It's weird seeing like a woman's flyweight under being -175 for the 2.5, but it makes sense to me. Like I don't want to be holding a fight goes the distance ticket here and just praying that Miller continues to survive for 15 minutes, which I don't really think she will. For me, like when I see Judice in these kind of matchups, it's 2-3, round 2-3 knockout, but the bookies are onto us. The prices are absolute garbage. I think it's like +300 for the round 2, and it's like +6 for the round 3. Let me see real quick. Yeah, just around there, which I think is horrendous, but I might end up playing it anyways because I do think one of those is going to cash. It's just going to be annoying if I put like a half unit on 2, or a half unit on round 3, and then she just deads her in the first round because Miller's not defending anything. So we'll go Judice for me, and we can move on to another fight that probably won't take us too long. Not the most competitive fight, I don't think. It could be theoretically, but we have Yadier Del Valle versus Jordan Leavitt. Del Valle, he's going to be 10-0 undefeated, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach, coming off of a very curious fight, against Bulgarian. Weird result there. Not necessarily a weird result, but the whole thing put together was strange. And Leavitt on the other side, 12-3-0, 30 years old. He's 1 year older. He's going to be the same height, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. I'll start us off here. Leavitt coming down to 145. I don't really know how that's going to go for him. I felt like he was a reasonably sized lightweight. He never seemed too small to me. He wasn't a guy I looked at and was like, this guy should be fighting at 145. But I guess he wants to go down and try his luck. I mean, I'm not too worried. I think he'll make the weight. I don't really think he's going to have any problems with the chin or anything like that. Del Valle does hit relatively hard, and I could see him maybe breaking him down the stretch. But I feel like if Del Valle does get the finish, which I do think he will, I kind of think it's going to be a sub, which is interesting because the sub is, I mean, the KO is favored for Del Valle, not the sub. So, yeah, not really a ton to say here. I just think Del Valle is going to be too strong, too physical, too athletic. And when Leavitt gets these kind of matchups, he tends to get subbed. You know, Patty was over here, Hooper over here. And I think Del Valle is going to be the third one to submit him in the UFC. And that's where I'm at. What do you think, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get this line, to be honest with you, because to me, Yadier Del Valle has proved like exactly nothing. He won a fixed fight. You know, he won a fight that he didn't know it was fixed. And he did exactly what he was supposed to do, you know, get the guy down, get his back, finish him. And he did that. But it turns out that, you know, the guy let him do that. And we know that. We know that, right? And then before that, I mean, Connor Matthews, that's not a UFC level win. That's a CES level win, you know? And I mean, like, there's nobody from that organization that's legit enough to come to the UFC. Antonio Montero on Dana White's Contender Series is an absolute punching bag.
He's pretty good, though.
What?
Montero's pretty good, though.
Well, he's like the Brazilian Homer Simpson. He gets punched in the face for 2.5 rounds, 150 times, sticks around, and then winds up winning fights. And he actually won that third round against Del Valle, I thought, but it was only because Del Valle used 100% of his energy whooping his ass for the first 10 minutes. So it was a great performance by Del Valle, but I don't think Montero is any good. I mean, the guy's got no defense at all. And then the Aswell fight, I thought he lost that fight. What the Aswell fight showed me is that this guy can't wrestle. That's a problem because he's going to need to be able to get takedowns at this level because he's not the biggest featherweight. And because Yadier is fairly new to purely MMA, he was just a jiu-jitsu guy before that. I don't know if his wrestling is where it needs to be. And Jordan Leavitt's actually done all right at the UFC level at distance striking range. I know it doesn't look like it when you watch him strike, but shit, he won a 15-minute striking match against Trey Ogden. He knocked out Matt Wyman. He knocked out Victor Martinez. So I just think that this is kind of a ridiculous line. You know, I think they're assuming that Yadier is going to run through a guy who has 8 UFC fights, and the 2 submission losses that he has are to guys that would literally toy with Yadier Del Valle on the ground, I think. Patty and Hooper both. So, I mean, I think Yadier wins this fight because I don't think Leavitt's the best wrestler either, and I don't think he's particularly dangerous at distance striking range. So I think that Yadier probably does more to win the minutes here. But I like overs in this fight because I could see either guy getting a submission, but frankly, I don't think Yadier is going to be finishing anybody with a pulse at this level unless he winds up being better than what I think he's going to be. But he hasn't proven anything to me yet. So, yeah, this is dog or pass for me, actually. At the current price, minus 400 on a guy whose last win was a fixed fight, I might be willing to take another shot on Jordan Leavitt here. I've won money on him before.
Yeah, I definitely can't get behind the money line on Yadier, that's for sure. Especially when he hasn't really been a problem lately. Not that we've seen him really extended, but him jumping guillotine is kind of a thing he has done in the past, and that's something that has bit me a lot. Veretennikov is the big one for me. I'll never forget that one. And I had money on Brundage when he fought Cedric Dumas and invented a way
you
to
were going to say the Vieira fight, because remember when he jumped guillotine against Vieira? Oh my God. I was like, Cody, no, you know.
I didn't have him there, but I had him against Cedric, and I just remember him shooting, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly what we need. He's in on the single leg. And then he figures out a way to go from a single leg to jumping guillotine. And I'm like, okay, mistakes happen. Look at him. He's already working his way back up. He's back on the leg, and what does he do again? He jumps guillotine again. So I did it with Veretennikov, and that bit me, and I don't know if I'll be playing anybody anymore who jumps guillotine in more than one fight. But when you were talking about it, you know, I didn't really look at the totals all that much because I wasn't that interested. Fight goes plus 195. I mean,
yeah,
I'm surprised. Like, I know I said that I like Del Valle sub plus 275. I think that's a solid number, but I didn't realize that fight goes is that steep. That's really interesting.
And Yadier wasn't even finishing regional scene guys. You know, I mean, he finished both of his UFC wins over Connor Matthews and Delgarian, but you go before that, and he's only finished 4 of his 8 wins on the regional scene. Now, he probably should have. I mean, if Montero was able to be finished, you know, if he wasn't Homer Simpson, that's another finish, and that's looking a little bit more impressive. But Leavitt's only getting subbed by elite guys. And Yadier is finishing lower level, you know, UFC competition. So, yeah, I could see the overs here being a nice contrarian play as to a good way to maybe fade Del Valle without having to put a bet on Jordan Leavitt here.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And it's like, I'm thinking about it right now. And like, if he doesn't sub him, right, is he really going to knock out Leavitt? Because he's not a big KO guy. Like, he can attritionally beat on people, sure.
Yeah.
But he's not a big KO guy. He's got 2 of them, and Leavitt's never been knocked out. Now, my question is, can Leavitt take shots from harder hitters? Because, you know, he hasn't really fought any hard hitters. But
weight cut this time for him too.
Yeah. So that could be a question mark. But I'm going to strongly consider that fight goes. Might have just come up with the bet live on air.
Nice. There we go, man. It's a tricky fight. So, you know, like sometimes you got to look a little bit deeper.
Yeah, maybe even. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe even like a Yadier sub or decision if I want to cover the sub. Definitely something I'm going to think about. But we can move on to some more competitive fights, I would say. Let me just catch up with the chat real quick, and then we'll go on our way. Let's see what we got. AJ's talking about the Bulgarian. That was so insane, man. Honestly, like, I could have been convinced, I think, that it wasn't fixed, if not for his interviews leading up to it, when he was like getting frustrated about how the fighters don't make any money from the gamblers. Like, that was pretty bad. Combined with everything else, that was pretty bad. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, he's so talented. Like, he really probably was going to make a run. And craziness.
Yeah.
We got Londo in here. He wants a bigger number on Sean. I do think you'll probably get it personally, but I am not a line movement expert. I'll say that off the bat. JB saying Yadier pulls Gilly and gets slam KO'd. Could be cool.
His Gilly is good, dude.
He does have a good gilly.
Yeah.
I hate that move so much. I hate it. When I have money on a fighter and they willingly throw themselves on their back, it's like, please no, bro.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. We got Mazizo in here. Yeah, Fluffy is indeed Anthony Hernandez. Great nickname. Montero saved by the bell.
He did in the second round of that fight.
Yeah, he did kind of set himself up like AJ, like I was mentioning before. But all right, moving on. We got Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani versus Phil Rowe. JPL, he's going to be 9-2-0, 27 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. Rowe on the other side, 11-6-0. He's 35. He's going to be 6 years older, going to be 4 inches taller, and he's going to have about an 8-inch reach advantage. Wheezy, start us off here. You like the dog at all?
Yeah, I've bet on him a few times, Mike, and I've cashed some time. I bet on him against Angelusa, and it was a terrible bet, but it wound up cashing. He got lucky and finished him at the end. And I bet on him against Seok-Young Ko because what I said was Ko's a judo guy. He really kind of needs to get in close. And, if Phil Rowe does a good job using his length to kind of maintain distance, and it turns out that Seok-Young Ko doesn't really have good freestyle open mat wrestling, that would have been a good matchup if Rowe could have kept it on the feet. Dude, this guy cannot stop a takedown. I mean, he's got Vanessa Demopoulos level takedown defense. So, and you could see it even in the record. Sometimes all you got to do is look at somebody's record. Phil Rowe, 7-1 to the KO, 4-0 to the submission, 0-5 to the decision. And it just kind of tells you, sometimes those fighters that aren't winning decisions, they're lazy. They're waiting for their one big moment. And sometimes the moment doesn't come. So because of that, Phil Rowe's been priced as an underdog, I think, in each of his last 5 fights. And this is actually the biggest underdog price that we've seen him at over that stretch. Let me get the numbers for you here. Rowe was plus 150 against Ko, plus 145 against Lusa, around plus 160 versus Matthews, around plus 150 versus Magny, and then plus 105 versus Nico Price. So you just want to know right off the bat that this is the cheapest we've seen Rowe, and he's facing a UFC debutant who's been knocked out in both of his losses as a professional. And Phil Rowe has won all of his UFC fights by knockout. All 4 of his wins come by KO. So there is definitely a path to victory here for Rowe. If he can keep the fight standing, find some big shots on the feet, use that 8-inch reach advantage, that 4-inch height advantage. That's going to be really big for him. But, dude, Phil is just so bad at MMA. He's got no takedown defense, no get-up game. And even though he's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach, and he's super long and flexible for the division, when he gets put on his back, he doesn't even go for submissions. So he really does have to keep this fight standing, and he's terrible at it. 50% takedown defense, 42% of his UFC octagon time he's being spent controlled by his opponents. And I don't even think he's that much better of a striker than Lebosnoyani, because Lebosnoyani's got really good kicks. And those are some really good long-range weapons, and he's not afraid to throw them because he doesn't care if you take him down. He's got elite Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's been in a gi probably since he came out of the womb. So he's going to be able to grapple with Phil Rowe pretty easily, and he can get takedowns whenever he wants them. So I'm thinking Lebosnoyani decision is probably the most likely path here because Phil's got really good cardio. He's durable. He just waits too long. And because of that, he lets the minutes slip away. He lets the rounds slip away. He gets urgent in the third, but if you have the ability to take him down, he's not going to be able to do anything off his back to get back to the feet or find a submission. So I really do think Lebosnoyani should be the favorite here. Maybe not minus 200 because he's a debutant and because he's been knocked out before, but I think he's got more paths to victory for this fight.
Yeah, that's a fair take. I'm having a hard time deciding personally because, for me, I generally don't like to bet on Rowe or people like him just because, for me, my hair's already thinning and I'm only 28 years old, Wheezy, and I can't lose my hair watching this guy lay on his back and do nothing when he probably could get back up and just lose my money. I can't handle that stuff. But at the same time, I do think there's some value here. I really do. With Lebosnoyani, I just have a lot of questions still for him at welterweight. He's only been at welterweight for 4 or 5 fights, and
Even
We're all talking
3
about the
maybe.
What's that?
I said maybe even only 3. I remember it was a
Yeah.
pretty recent move up for him.
Yeah, it was after the Jacobe Jones fight.
Yeah.
1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4. Yeah.
So
So
4
4
fights. Okay.
fights he's been at welterweight. And it's like since he's gone to welterweight, he hasn't shot a takedown, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know that he can grapple welterweights. I don't know that he can grapple these big guys. At lightweight, he was doing it to an extent, but even then he wasn't shooting a lot. And I used to be the guy who, when people would say like, oh, he fell in love with the striking, he fell in love with his hands, I'd be like, shut up. Like, that's a stupid narrative. But it's true. It happens all the time. Brendan Allen is a great example. He's had to relearn to grapple and bring that back into his game. And I do think it's a thing. And I'm watching JPL and like, yeah, he's smooth. He's got really good movement. He switches stances nice. And the way he sets up the kicks, it's really, really clean. But first of all, is he even going to be able to reach Rowe's head with the kicks? I don't know. It's gonna be awkward for sure. And Rowe is his tallest opponent to date. So that's one thing. And I don't think his boxing's all that good. And then if he can't wrestle Rowe, I don't know. You know, like if Rowe takes him down for some reason, like you mentioned, like he might get subbed then. Yeah, JPL's really slick off of his back. But you don't see him working from top a lot because he's just not really going for takedowns. Yeah. He's really just looking to strike. So, and I'm watching, and, you know, with a kick-heavy game also, and he's lowering his hands, I can't help but feel like Rowe could hit him with some nice shots down the pipe because he does throw straight. That's something I like about Rowe. He's not winging like a madman. He keeps it nice, straight, and technical. The kicks are pretty good. He's just going to have to be careful with them so he doesn't get any of them caught and taken down. And if he's just striking, I feel like he really could win this fight, if not knock out JPL. You know, the loss to Jacobe Jones, it wasn't like he got put out cold. It was a TKO on the ground, and it was like a doctor stoppage, I believe. He was just bleeding a lot. But he got knocked out by Spike Carlisle. Sorry. And if I'm not mistaken, Spike ended up fighting at 145. So, and that's not a great look. Like, he put him out, believe it was cold. And if Spike's doing that, I know it was years ago, but I don't see why Rowe with a nicely timed shot can't put him away either. So the price is starting to get really tempting to me. I am going to pick JPL because, like you said, at the end of the day, he should probably be a slight favorite. Maybe like 55% would be okay. But I think we're starting to get a little too far now. He's sitting at what, like 250, 205. Rowe plus 180, I see. Like, if Rowe hits plus 200, I'm probably going to have to click, unfortunately. It's going to suck when he gets taken down or not even taken down. He's going to somehow end up on his back without getting taken down. And that's how he's going to end up losing. But
yeah, it's going to be the air conditioning. He's going to kick on at some point and just like blow off of his feet, you know, and then Lebosnoyani gets on top. Well, can I interest you, Mike, in Phil Rowe by KO at plus 500? Would it make you feel better?
Yeah.
If you were playing the most likely path to victory, knowing that maybe you only got a quarter unit or a half unit on it, and if he winds up, you know, just giving away the minutes, he didn't lose a full unit on his money line, you know. And at plus 500, that's how all of his fights as a professional in the UFC have ended when he wins. And it's how all of Lebosnoyani's losses have ended. So you could attack the chin and, frankly, the Diaz brothers type face of Lebosnoyani, which has been cut up a few times. You look at him after that Jacobe Jones fight, this guy's going to have a lot of scar tissue on his face. So, yeah, man, we could look at a Phil Rowe KO here, plus 500. We could take a look at Phil Rowe third round KO.
2-3, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I think those are the good looks to play the Rowe side here because he just doesn't have a whole lot of decision upside.
Isn't it a little weird on Bet Online if you look at it? His decision's plus 400, but his KO's plus 500, and he's never won a decision.
I don't get that at all. I don't understand that, but maybe people think the size difference. I don't know. And then also the experience difference for Rowe.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't say Rowe can't win a decision because, like, in the Lusa fight, he was winning that second round until he got dropped at the end, hurt at the end. He was winning that second round. So it very well could have been a Rowe decision if he didn't get the finish in round 3, but fought essentially the same way. Could have been a 2-1 decision. So I don't want to completely count him out for that, you know, and especially it's MMA and you get an underdog plus 180, plus 200. You don't want to get too funky with it, but we'll see. I do like to keep my bets small on guys like Phil Rowe and who just can't stuff a takedown to save their life. If you like the JPL side, though, like you mentioned, Weezy, the decision, I did not expect it to be plus 300. That's a nice number.
Me too.
I think.
Me too, man. Maybe I might do like a little Dutch bet with a little bit on Lebosnoyani decision, a little bit on Rowe KO and kind of just Dutch it. So either one of those things happen, I'm up. And if any of the other results don't, happen, then all right, I lose both bets.
Yeah, I don't hate it. All right, we can move on to another fight where hard to trust either guy here, but here we are, and they're both on a win streak too. We got Ramiz Brahimaj versus Punahele Soriano. Brahimaj 13-5-0, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. On the other side, we got Soriano. He's 12-4-0. He's going to be 33 as well, 1 inch taller and about the same reach. I'll start us off here. Two guys I've never been super high on. Puna, I faded more than once. Ramiz probably also, but Puna for sure I faded many times, especially with Dustin Stoltzfus. That's my favorite one that came through clutch. But, I'm looking at this fight and I can't really make a lot of sense of Ramiz being a favorite. So I am kind of thinking about Soriano because it's like, I guess I just remembered the Vanderford fight really different. I remembered him just like butchering Vanderford on the feet and then Vanderford shooting and eventually getting caught. But it's like they spent the entire second round just in the guillotine position, pretty much. Like that was the entirety of the second round. And he just kept adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. And ultimately he got it. And then similar situation against Billy Goff, where they're just clinching and Billy just keeps sticking his neck in over and over again. And you just see Ramiz slowly adjusting. And he ends up getting it. And sure, it can happen to Puna. I mean, Puna's head was in that guillotine with Veretennikov like 20 times. But I think part of it is he felt no threat because Veretennikov is not a submission guy. I don't know where he even got it in his head that was the proper strategy because he was the better striker. And when he actually tried, he was stuffing those takedowns. He was. I don't know what that was. It sucked because it was a plus 200 ticket that could have hit, but didn't even come close. So I think that Soriano, that could be a thing to be nervous about, that he does stick his neck into that kind of thing. But at the same time, he might be a little bit more careful because Ramiz is somebody you have to respect that guillotine or you are going to go out or you are going to tap. But like when I look at it, who's more likely to control where the fight takes place? And I feel like it's Soriano because who has better takedown defense? Soriano. And who do I think has better wrestling? Also Soriano. So I got to think he's probably the one who can dictate where the fight takes place. And you look at when Ramiz fights other good wrestlers. I mean, even Vanderford, first round, he did take him down. And second round, he did take him down too. They just kept hanging out in the guillotine. But like, I can't get rid of the Themba Gorimbo fight out of my head. That was horrible. That was horrible. He's getting grappled the whole time. Couldn't get any meaningful offense off whatsoever. And the few times that he did get something going, like taking the back, he falls off and loses position. So I don't think he's going to be able to stuff a lot of the takedowns. And I don't really rate his offensive wrestling all that highly. I know Soriano's takedown defense isn't anything to write home about, but he pops back up really quickly. I mean, Maximov took him down like 11 times. Couldn't really establish any control. So I don't think he's going to be easy to hold down. If he's uncomfortable on the feet for whatever reason, he can probably get the takedowns. And on the feet, I think it's very close. I think Ramiz is a little bit cleaner. I do think he's really developed the game well. Like the jab is really clean, not something he really had when you look at like the Max Griffin fight where his ear fell off. Yeah. But such a sick fight also. I remember seeing that was so cool. I'm glad his ear's okay, but that was such a cool fight. But like he's got a jab going, he's got the combinations, nice, he's got nice counters. The Mickey Gall knockout was very, very clean. It's just like it was Mickey Gall after all. Like we got to also kind of put a little bit of an asterisk behind it because it's like Billy Goff, Mickey Gall, and I think Vanderford's a good win. I don't want to take that from him, but the other two don't tell me a lot, and so I'm not even sold that his striking is all that much better. It looks solid. It looks like it's improving, but I don't think he's gonna like run away with it against Soriano on the feet. Like if they kickbox, I don't think he's winning it every single time, you know. So and Soriano seems to hit harder out of the two of them for me too. So I do think I'm leaning towards the Soriano side. The more I think about it, the more I talk about it. Pre-tape, I was thinking Ramiz, and I was thinking I probably will like him because I really don't like Puna in general. But I think my pick's gonna end up being Puna. It's just a gut feeling, but I don't think I'm gonna have any money on it because I don't really want to trust either guy. How about you, Weezy?
Yeah, I think Soriano decision's a pretty good look because Ramiz is very durable. You know, I mean, like the only time he's ever been finished was because his ear came off. And frankly, if the ref didn't see that, the fight would have gone the distance.
He would have kept fighting for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, he wasn't out of that fight even. You know, that was a close enough fight where if you know, that fight goes the distance, and this guy's never been finished in 18 professional fights. So I think Ramiz is very durable. But like you said, man, I mean, while this fight is on the feet, I think Soriano's way more likely to hurt Brahimaj than the other way around. And when it comes to offensive and defensive wrestling, which one of these guys is going to be able to use phase control if they don't like how the distance striking is going? I think that that's Soriano. And Soriano's got really good ground and pound, man. So like JB just brought up Texas judging. I could just say, I know Ramiz is from Texas, but I can promise you if these judges are from Texas, they don't give a fuck about an Albanian Muslim, all right? They'll probably go for Puna. So, I feel like Puna's the side here. I saw a lot of money came in on Brahimaj, and I don't really like to back either one of these guys, but I felt like Soriano. What was Soriano against in that last fight? He was a minus 400 favorite.
Oh, wow.
Minus 400 against Veretennikov, and now he's being priced as below a pick'em against Brahimaj. So you're getting a nice little discount on a guy who's on a 3-fight winning streak and who is showing a completely different fighter than what he was at 185, because he wasn't wrestling at all at 185. Now he's wrestling, but he's always had the power in his back pocket. So it was, he was kind of like one of the fighters that we just talked about in the last fight where,
fell in love with the hands.
Yeah. One punch, you're like, Rowe can get a moment, well, Soriano was always like that as well, but now Soriano can win minutes with his grappling game. So I do think that Soriano's the side here. And I think that enough money is coming on Brahimaj now to drive the price to Soriano where he's the money line side.
Yeah, it's definitely getting tempting for me. And I do want to mention this. We got a Rekon Solaka in here. What's up, my brother? Soriano, no cardio. I've been hearing that a lot. First off, I feel like he does have cardio. Does he slow down a bit? Yeah, he does. But since when is Ramiz a cardio monster?
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was gassed against Themba. He was tired against Court McGee. Like, he does get tired. Also, he's not a cardio machine either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Soriano's likely going to make him grapple. So I'm not buying that whole no cardio narrative. I think if anything, like, I lean towards Soriano maybe having better cardio just based off of what I've seen, but that's where I'm at. We can move on. Next up, we have a fight that I'm not going to personally break down for too long. Just feel like there's not a ton to say, but we have Nora Cornolle versus Joselyne Edwards. Nora, she's going to be 9-3-0, 36 years old, 5'7" with the 67-inch reach. Edwards, 6-0. Yes. 30 years old. She's 6 years younger, 1 inch taller, and she's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Wheezy, what you got here? Were you dying to see this rematch?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is obviously the UFC has been taking my letters because I've been writing strongly worded letters since the first fight, Mike. So you have me to thank for this rematch. So, yeah, Joselyne's looked really good lately, really good. And as an MMA bettor, you got to be careful, kind of trying to bet somebody coming off of their worst or their best performance. And sometimes you want to get somebody in there after their worst performance, hoping that they bounce back, especially if they're still young. But yeah, I mean, Joselyne was minus 250 against Tamiris Vidal, minus 290 against Chelsea Chandler, minus 390 against Priscilla Cachoeira, and she's covering all those price tags and with style. So, just a ton of momentum coming into this fight. Cornolle has lost 2 out of her last 3 fights, lost to Carol Rosa by decision, lost a split decision to Jacqueline Cavalcanti, who we know is a very good fighter, and got a win over Haley Cohen, who's hasn't been able to stay healthy and hasn't been able to stay active. So, yeah, you got all this momentum and for Edwards, and she's only 30, while you've got, Cornhole kind of starting to go towards the downside of her career, and she's 36 years old. The first fight took place in Paris, France, where the crowd was going nuts for Nora. Now we're going to be taking it to Houston, where Joselyne Edwards is probably going to be getting the fan support. So, yeah, there's a lot of narrative-based issues, recency bias in this line for this fight. But I mean, when the cage door closes, the last time these guys fought wasn't that long ago. And in my opinion, it was a 50-50 fight. I didn't see a robbery there. I'm not saying that Nora won it. I'm just saying, like, I know what a robbery looks like. And in Paris, in front of the home fans, with as many mistakes as Edwards made with some of those grappling positions, and she wasn't landing damage in those positions either. which is why I think that Nora wound up getting the nod there. But I think she was 30-27 on 2 cards, though, Mike. And like that was like, whoa, come on. She didn't win that 3rd round. But I think you can make a pretty good case that she won the 1st and the 2nd. So this might be a 50-50 fight. If this fight plays out like the last one played out, I promise you Nora Cornolle is the money line side here. But what we're seeing with our eyes and what the market is all seeing the same thing. They're seeing Joselyne Edwards at 30 years old taking that next step in her career and looking like she's going to be fighting in the top 10 of the division going forward.
What do you think of Dravi's question, Weezy? You think a finish is live?
Well, I mean, she's finished her last 3 wins, Joselyne Edwards. We'll never forget the ice bag on the titty for Tamaris Vidal. Now, that was not the Edwards fight. That was the Melissa Gatto fight. But like Key 3 Picks says, the streets will never forget that. Chelsea Chandler stinks. Cachoeira kind of stinks. So I think that this is probably a little bit of a step up, but not that much. So, yeah, Joselyne probably gets the job done here. And her striking numbers have always been good. And it just looks like she's taking the next step, training with the right people, getting the right looks. So, yeah, I do think potentially a finish is live. Let's see what the market's pricing it at, though. Fight doesn't go sitting at plus 200. My model says that that's fairly priced for a 16-fight sample size here. So then if you look at Joselyne Edwards inside the distance, plus 300, the market is saying that's only about a third of her win condition, because at minus 300, she's 75% implied. At plus 300 for the inside the distance, that's only 25% implied. That goes into 75 3 times. So they're saying 1 out of 3 times she finishes Nora Cornolle, who has never been finished as a professional. So we remember the $25,000 bonus that you're going to get when you get a finish now. I think that's going to make some of these people fight with a little bit more urgency. So I could see it happening. My model actually kind of likes the Joselyne Edwards by knockout at plus 650.
I agree with your model because I'm tempted to.
Yeah.
For me here, like I do understand what you were saying with the first fight. I personally did think it was Edwards' fight, but I don't think it was like the worst robbery in the world. But I also think that Edwards is going to whoop on her this time. That's what I'm kind of thinking. Like, she has improved a lot, even in these like last 2 years. It's kind of crazy. Become a lot stronger, a lot more physical. She got popping her punches now. She's knocking people out, submitting people on the ground. Her grappling looks great. And I just think Cornolle's grappling is really, really bad. I was on some version of a Rosa finish. I forget if it was a Rosa sub or Rosa ITD or if it was an under. I don't remember exactly. I know I did bet for the fight to finish, and I really did feel like Rosa could have finished her on the ground. I just felt like she wasn't urgent enough at all. But I feel like Edwards is somebody who's urgent. And like you mentioned, now we got those bonuses too if you're finishing your opponents, which I love that they're doing. I think that was a great idea by them. So, and if you take like, forget like Edwards or Edwards ITD, you could just take fight doesn't go at plus 200 and cover yourself, because Nora's also a finisher. She got two out of 5 fights in the UFC. She's finished her opponent. She hits hard. She's a good striker. She's got power. And I don't think she's going to do it, but would I be shocked if she caught Edwards with something? Absolutely not. So I think that's probably how you target it. It's a surprising price for me, especially because normally, MMA markets are pretty short term. The memory is pretty short term, and you have Edwards with 3 finishes in a row, Nora Cornolle with plenty of finishes for women's bantamweight, and you're still getting minus 280 to the over 2.5. So personally, I think that's what I'm going to do if I do anything with the fight. And I don't hate that KO prop also for a sprinkle. Maybe something late, a good old round 3 prop. You guys know I love those. Let me see what that's sitting at. Edwards round 3 straight is plus 1,600 on DK. Don't hate that at all. How about KO? Plus 2,500 for the KO.
Ooh, that's 3rd round.
Yeah, a 1/10 of a unit never hurt anybody.
Yeah, there you go.
Nora doesn't get up if she's like her once she's on her back. I think she's really, really poor there. And we kind of saw that with the Rosa fight. Rosa needed 2 takedowns to get 11 minutes of control time in that fight.
That's not good.
Not good at all. But all right, it's Edwards for me, and we can move on. This is a great fight. Next up, we have Alden Coria versus Luis Gurule. Coria is going to be 11-3-0, 27 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Gurule 10-2-0. He's 32, so he's going to be 5 years older. He's going to be 3 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So Coria really pleasantly surprised me last time out. I didn't have any money on that fight. Actually, I might have had a fight goes. I think I might have had a fight goes. So I did lose money on that fight if I did. But I remember just thinking like, okay, I'm never betting Costa minus 400. But I was saying throughout the week that, Coria looks good. I just feel like I don't know what he's better than Costa at. And it turns out plenty of things, especially the boxing. And his boxing is really, really clean. I really like his striking, clean jab, the way he switches stances really smoothly, the kicks, the combinations, the counters are on point. Would like a little bit more output out of him. And I don't love how he looks when he's getting backed up. Who was that? I forget that fella's name who beat him. He fought Gurule also. You remember off the top of your head, Weezy?
Was it Moran?
No.
Okay.
I'm
looking at it right
Trujillo.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Trujillo beat him, and Trujillo has a similar build to Gurule, short, stocky dude. Trujillo was just walking him down, throwing shots to the body, going upstairs, and it did seem to me like he could be, if he's pressured, he could be uncomfortable. And there are times where he's just not really throwing enough. Maybe that's changed now. He's a young kid. He's 27 years old. He's going to keep getting better, and he's at a great camp. I used to be really hard on 4 Ounce Fight Club. I would be like, who's even there? Daniel Pineda and Ike Villanueva. But look at them go. They're really building something down there. So I definitely respect that camp now. Their counter grappling is on point, clearly. Both Coria's takedown defense. Look at Van's takedown defense. In absolutely insanity. So there's a lot I like about Coria. And obviously, Gurule let a lot of us down. I was not on him against Ode. I dodged that bullet because I did feel like that was a possibility of him getting knocked out. So I just passed. But I bet on him against Aguilar. I was like, what the hell is Aguilar going to do to him? He's not going to knock him out. He's not going to hurt him. Hurt him twice. And I didn't think he was going to grapple him, which he didn't really. But he didn't need to. And who would have thought that Aguilar's going to outstrike him for 15 minutes? I certainly didn't think that. So that was really concerning to me. And seeing Gurule get rocked not once, but twice by Aguilar.
Yeah.
Very concerning. But all that said, I still can't help but feel like this line is wide. And I feel like it's definitely a dog or pass on the money line because Gurule is pretty good still. Outside of the chin, like he's a pretty good fighter. I think on the feet, he's going to be competitive with Coria. Is he as slick as him, as fast? No. But I don't think he's seeing a ton of power coming his way. And like I said, Coria is not really throwing a lot of the time, and Gurule does throw a lot of volume. So as long as he's not getting knocked out, I feel like Gurule is going to be the one pressuring. I feel like Gurule is probably going to be the one throwing more. And I just see a really close fight on the feet. And then I kind of give Gurule the grappling upside. I feel like he's a better offensive wrestler. I think he's a little bit stronger, a little bit more physical, short, stocky build. And I do think that he can get Coria down. Coria's got good takedown defense. He does get up quickly. I don't think Gurule is going to be able to keep him there for long periods of time or like dominate or anything like that. But I think he can mix it in to kind of steal rounds in what I think is going to be a pretty close fight outside of a knockout. So for me, I feel like plus 230, plus 220 on Gurule. I do think that's a pretty good play. I think you can do a lot worse. You're getting a pretty talented fighter, and I'm not convinced that his chin's completely gone. It's definitely not great for flyweight, that's for sure. But I just don't know if it's enough to make him plus 220 when I think the skills are pretty close, and I give him the grappling path out of the two of them.
Yeah, I think that's a sharp read. Here's the stat of the fight that I'm going to give you. And it is that Gurule was minus 230 in his UFC debut versus Ode Osbourne, somebody a lot more experienced than Coria. And then he lost that fight. And then he gets Aguilar, and he's priced as a minus 200 favorite there. And then now in just one fight, after going 0-2, now we're forgetting that Gurule has any upside at all in the division. And he's priced as a plus 250 underdog. Where is he right now?
He's plus 225, plus 235. Depends where you look, around that range.
And on the other side with Coria, he was plus 300 in his last fight against Alessandro Costa, who hadn't fought in almost 2 years, who was a guy that I never thought was that great either. I wish I had gotten to that bet. I was eyeing it up all week, and I think it was the short notice that backed me away, but I was like, there's no way that Costa should be minus 400 against this guy, and he covered it, but you're talking about a massive increase in price from Coria going from 25% implied to 75% implied. And then you're looking at Gurule going from like 66 to 70% implied now to being a 35% implied. So, short-term recency bias is obviously a great way to find value in what I think is going to be a close fight. Because Gurule can wrestle and Gurule can pressure. That's one of the things that they talked about Gurule in the Piccinini fight before when he fought him on DWCS, was they were saying this guy just will continuously walk forward. And if you're a boxer, you hate that. You hate that. You have to start really kind of planting your feet and throwing. And when you do that, you kind of open yourself to getting taken down when you're trying to get that respect from your opponent because he keeps putting you on your back foot. So, yeah, potentially this could be a good bounce back spot for Gurule. I'm not laying minus 300 on Coria when he was plus 300 in his last fight, and that was a debut. And also the other thing is too, when you are the one that's taking the short notice opponent, like Costa did in that spot, you didn't have time to prepare for that guy either. So a lot of times you get a little bit more credit than maybe you should for winning a short notice fight because it's a handicap for the guy who took the short notice fight as well, because they don't necessarily know that what this new opponent's going to have to offer them. So yeah, I think it's going to be a close fight, and I think Gurule is probably the money line side, but this guy Coria's striking is so good, and his takedown defense is solid, and he's even shown some offensive wrestling in his own right. So the guy, he looks like a legit prospect. So I get why he's the favorite here, and it makes sense with Gurule's recent bad performances.
Yeah, I think Coria favorite is definitely fair. If he was the underdog, I'd be on him without a doubt.
Yeah,
but I just think this is too much. Like you mentioned, like we're about to hit minus 300. It just seems like too much. And it's like one of those bets where it's like, if he loses Gurule, like I can live with it. Like if he gets knocked out here, I can live with it.
Yeah,
because I feel like there's a lot of potential upside. But we can move on. We got another fun competitive fight, I would say. We got Ode Osbourne versus Alibi Idiris. Osbourne, he's going to be 13-9-0, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 73-inch reach. On the other side, Idiris, 10-1-0. He's 31. He's going to be 3 years younger, 1 inch shorter, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach disadvantage. I can start us off here. I've been pretty high on this Idiris guy since the Ultimate Fighter. I thought he was a lot of fun. I liked his 2 wins. Echeverria win's a great win, in my opinion. And the other fella he beat is kind of a beast. Oh, it's not up on here.
I'll get it for you, man. Keep talking.
His name. Yeah. But he's a guy who I liked a lot, and I do think pretty highly of him. Going into the Joseph Morales fight, I gave Joseph Morales some chance at the time. I think me and my wife were going on our honeymoon, so I wasn't really betting a lot on that card. And I think I had I took like Morales decision at like plus 500 before getting on the plane, just like as a personal play. And then I just see him start beating the crap out of Idiris, and I'm like, why did I not just take the money line? And it turns out Morales is just an absolute stud.
Yes.
But then going to the tape on this one, it was kind of like a roller coaster, because I taped, I think I taped Idiris first, then Ode, and then I went back to Idiris. And after I finished Ode, I was like, okay, I kind of like Ode here. Really clean, sharp striking. We all know that about Ode. He hits hard. He's fast, athletic dude. And Idiris, what I think could cost him here when he's striking, whenever he throws a kick or his knees, like his knees up the middle, I like them a lot. But whenever he does one of those things, the hands just come down every single time. They go down pretty much to his waist. And Ode's a sniper. That's kind of his thing. He's not throwing a ton of volume, but when he throws, it's usually pretty accurate. And I would not be shocked at all if that's exactly what happened. Idiris goes in for a sloppy step-in knee, hands drop, Ode just down the pipe and sits him down. Like, I can see that. I can also see Ode winning a decision by just having the bigger moments on the feet. But then after I ran it back again and I looked at Idiris again, I was thinking about it, and there's a reason I don't bet Ode often. It's because I really don't trust him all that much. Like, at the end of the day, his takedown defense isn't great. Off of his back, he is not great at all. He's not great at getting back up. He does get tired. He does wilt a bit, and not really a guy that I'm looking to play at a very close line at this point against a guy in Idiris who I do think has a lot of potential upside, and he does have grappling upside. Is he the best wrestler Ode's faced? No. Is he as good as the guy subbing Ode? Also no. But he does have some solid wrestling. He could get some takedowns, and I think he'll compete on the feet. Outside of what I said with the way he drops his hands in his defense, I do think he's a very dynamic striker, and he's got a much wider arsenal of weapons, I would say, than Ode. I mean, this guy comes up with every kind of strike you can think of. He's throwing it. So for me, the more I thought about it, the more I've moved on to the Idiris side. Now, am I going to bet him? Probably not, unless the line keeps going. Then maybe I'll get interested. Like at Pick'em, I could probably click. But at this point, I am going to be picking him just because younger guy, fresher guy, going to compete on the feet, and probably does have the wrestling upside and probably does have the ability to get Ode down a decent bit, especially as the fight goes on. It just really comes down to him minding his P's and Q's, watching those hands, keeping them up, and him not getting knocked out. But I am going to lean his way. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, the Osbourne KO is sitting at about plus 315, and that's probably his best chance because he is a pathetic minute winner. Just absolutely pathetic. And it's because if you just go to take him down, you're going to get the takedown, and he's probably not going to get back up. You know, like even a guy like Lazy Boy can just stay on top of him easily and get there whenever he wants. So, and Idiris is just as dangerous on the feet as Osbourne is, in my opinion, because Osbourne really does fade. I mean, he doesn't really show a ton of late power in fights, especially if you make him grapple early. We have seen him obviously get it before, but the second round knockout against Gurule, but other than that, Jerome Rivera, round 1, 26 seconds. Zaruk Adashev, round 1, 61 seconds. He's usually getting those finishes early in fights when he does get them. Yeah, and Idiris was minus 500 in his last fight against a stud in Morales. Everybody knew how good Morales was, and they still priced this guy at minus 500 here. And he got the way that he lost that fight was getting out grappled. I mean, you're not going to get out grappled by Ode Osbourne. There's white belts in children's classes that are fucking taking this guy's back. So, I think that Idiris has got some upside here. But what you mentioned was, first of all, this guy throws a lot of spinning shit, a lot of acrobatic, crazy shit that if like you said, if he's dropping his hands when he's throwing that stuff, somebody like Ode can drop you, put you in a really bad spot. And if you're not particularly durable, he can put you out. So, yeah, I think that Ode's got some moment-winning upside in this matchup for sure. But I think the A side is Alibi Idiris here. I just don't – I've been watching this guy Osbourne for 12 UFC fights now. His wins are some of the worst fighters in the history of the division, man. I mean, Jerome Rivera, 0-5. CJ Vergara has 3 UFC wins. How the fuck did that happen? I mean, that's crazy because he is one of the worst fighters I've ever seen. Zaruk Adashev, if there was an 85-pound weight class for men, he probably would be in that. So that guy was like 3-1 and got a UFC contract.
That was during COVID, I remember.
He got a win over Charles Johnson, but you and I both know that Charles Johnson can piss away a fight as good as anybody in the UFC, and that was the only time Charles Johnson ever showed bad conditioning. He took the fight on short notice, tried to make up for a loss that happened badly right before that, and he showed up not in shape, and he wound up getting outpaced by Ode Osbourne. Terrible.
What a strange story Charles Johnson is now. Knocking out Josh Van, Lonnie Kavanaugh, and then getting iced by Alex Perez, losing to Mirov, like just so strange. Like
losing to Ode Osbourne,
True.
I mean, like
even though he should not have lost that
Shumagulov. So
true,
I just think that this guy's wins are really bad, and I feel like if he hadn't caught Gurule, he probably was going to lose that fight too.
He did lose the first.
And so if Idiris has got a little bit better of a chin than Gurule, I think that he can, win the minutes here because he's going to be able to get takedowns whenever he wants them. And if you go far enough back on his regional tape, he's doing that in his fights. Mm-hmm. He knows he can do that. So, and you were asking about who he beat in the house. It was Roybert Echevarria, who you mentioned, and then the other guy was Furtubek Yakubov.
That guy's a scary dude early.
Yeah, the fighting pride of Uzbekistan. Yeah.
We got JB over here with this special Osbourne sub plus 1,500. maybe not for me, but maybe. Are we convinced Idiris is a UFC caliber fighter? I'm fairly convinced that he is. Do I think he's going to be a champion? No, maybe not even ranked, but I think he is UFC caliber at flyweight. I would say so. And like, I mean, are any of his he's got some good wins, even in the tough house. Like none of his, I mean, not none of his early ones, but a lot of his wins are solid wins. And the Joseph Morales loss is not a bad loss. Like that dude is going to make a run. He's already doing it. And it's not like Ode's beating the best guys either. Like, what's his best win? Probably CJ, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and CJ took it on short notice and looked like absolute trash there.
Yeah, outside of that, we're talking Jerome Rivera. You remember that guy?
Yeah.
CJ Vergara, Zaruk, like you said, CJ, Charles Johnson, and Gurule. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think if Ode's UFC caliber, I think Alibi Idiris is also. I'm not saying that to say like Idiris is for sure beating him, but I do think he's UFC caliber personally. Even if he loses this one and, he's got 2 losses in a row, I still think he beats a lot of guys in the flyweight division.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good, fun fight for sure, though, because Alibi puts on a show, and so does Osbourne. Osbourne's got a lot of pop for the division, so it should be a fun one.
Yeah, great fight. This is another great one. Too, There's like a couple really good ones in a row. These 3 I would say are fire. But we got Chidi Njokuani versus Carlos Leal. Chidi, 25-11-0, 37 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Leal, 22-7-0, 31. He's 6 years younger. He's going to be 4 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 6-inch reach disadvantage. What are you thinking here, Weezy?
I think the line's right about where it should be here. I think both of these guys are so dangerous. They both hit so hard. Leal, great pressure. And I think that Leal's pressure is going to be a key in this fight because he's the one who needs to maintain distance here because you need to be in boxing range against Chidi. Because if you stay out there at kicking range, he's going to mess you up. If you go into the clinch with him, he's going to mess you up. So you need to either get takedowns against this guy or stay in that boxing range where you can kind of eliminate the threat of his kicks and hopefully land big shots because Chidi will absolutely quit too. That's the one thing you can count on is that this guy's been finished 9 times as a professional. He's a great hammer. He's a bad nail. And, I think Carlos Leal is pretty good, but I'd like to see him start doing some steroids. Look at that picture. He doesn't look intense enough. I'd like to see him start trying to take his strength and conditioning seriously.
The back knee, dude.
I know.
So bad. My God.
Yeah, and he didn't have that back knee for the Salikov fight. So I'm hoping, that I'm going to wait until weigh-ins here. And if I see that great back knee on him again, I'm going to be rocking with Carlos Leal on this side because what this one comes down to me, when you're looking at a -600 fight doesn't go to decision, a -150 under 1.5 rounds for this fight, you figure someone's getting served, right? And both of these guys have got a lot of power. But which one of these guys is more durable? And I think that's pretty easy to say. It is Leal, but the reason why this is a -150 under 1.5 rounds is Leal is coming off a KO loss, the first of his career. So maybe that chin of his is starting to crack. And, and if you just walk forward with your hands down against Chidi, he can absolutely nuke your ass with a step-in knee, with a big elbow, with just a straight 1-2 down the pipe, with a teep kick, anything. This guy's got serious power in everything he throws. So I think it's going to be who can take the bigger shots here. And because of that, and because of the forward pressure of Leal, and maybe just a tiny bit of grappling upside for Leal, I think that I'll back him to win the fight. And I think he'll probably get a finish if he does win this one. Because, like I said, Chidi looks great until you crack him once, and then he starts looking for that door. And I think that Leal is going to show it to him.
I will say that the fight goes at +450 is really tempting me.
Well, let me look at my model here and just see what it said. Yeah, see, 4 of 12 fights. So a third of these guys' fights have seen the scorecards at the UFC level, but you're only paying 20% at +400.
It does seem like something that I might end up putting a quarter unit on because it's like, how many times have we gotten a fight where everybody's positive these two are going to finish each other? And then one way or another, we get to a decision. And I think this would be one of the less crazy ones. Look at Taliesin Teixeira and
I know. Yeah.
Like that was something.
Yeah,
I think this would be
under 1.5, lost a 3-leg parlay because of that not hitting. And I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This guy's never been past 2 minutes in a goddamn pro fight, and he goes 15 with Tuivasa after gassing out after 4 minutes. Unbelievable.
Like this one, realistically, I could see this one going the distance. I think a decent amount, because like if Leal's chin isn't gone, if him getting knocked out was just him getting caught, because if you look where Salikov caught him, he caught him right behind the ear.
Yeah,
that's the off right button. So it might not be that his chin's bad. It's just he's kind of a dummy and went into range with his hands down, his head forward, and just got caught really clean. Salikov's a boss for doing that at his age, but if his chin's still good, and especially if he chooses to grapple here, that plus 450 might look pretty nice. So that's something I'm thinking about. But this is another fight where when I started the tape, I was leaning towards Chidi. I was thinking like, okay, like really big dude, really nice striking, could take advantage of Leal's lack of defense, his sloppiness. The kicks are really, really good. I was honestly, I didn't remember him being that crisp with the kicks, but he's got a great kicking game. He'll go to all targets. He can go with the lead leg, the rear leg. It doesn't matter. I do wish he had some more boxing. That's kind of the problem with him. And you mentioned it. Like if Leal just gets into boxing range, like Chidi's got some hands, but not a lot, like really not a lot. And I do think that if Leal just takes away the kicking range, which he probably is going to do, because what does he do pretty much every single fight? He pressures forward relentlessly, and it costs him, sure. But that's also how you kind of beat Chidi. So it's like a tricky proposition because he has to be in the perfect space. Because if he's at kicking range, he's in trouble. Chidi's definitely going to be much better there, have a lot more success, long limbs. If he gets into boxing range, that's money for him. But then if he gets too close and Chidi clinches up, that's going to be Chidi also all day. He's nasty in the clinch. Yeah. So Leal's going to have to be really careful about how he does it, but he does have the style to beat Chidi. He's a guy who is going to keep going. He could break him if Chidi's going to be broken again. And I do think he can get takedowns. You know, you look at the Sadou Boussi fight, and very similar build to Chidi, long, tall, rangy guy. But Sadou Boussi, first off, what's that?
Said kickboxer too.
Yep. But the thing there is Sadou Boussi, I think he has much better movement than Chidi. That's one thing. So I think it's a lot harder to find someone like him than it is to find Chidi. I don't think it's that hard to get to him. And the other thing is Sadou Boussi is really hard to take down. Literally everyone tries. And he's a really difficult dude to get down. And Leal did get him down. He did. He got reversed at one point. That wasn't the best look. But just getting those takedowns to me is a solid thing to see, especially going into a fight with Chidi, where I think it would be in his best interest to mix that in at least a little bit, unless he maybe gets a knockout early or something like that. But yeah, I am starting to think about Leal. I think right now where the price is at, it's fair. So I'm kind of hoping that a little bit more money comes in on Chidi. It's another fight similar to the Idiris fight where if I get Pick'em or even better, plus money, slight plus money, I'm in. I'm fine with putting a unit down, but right now I'm holding off. I think we're about where we should be. I think if the price was even a little steeper on Leal like it was earlier, I still think that would have been okay. But I can't understand why people are playing Chidi. I know plenty of sharp people on him, and it does make a lot of sense. He's got a lot of ways to win this fight. It's just I don't like guys who might flake. I don't like putting my money on him because it's another one that's going to make my hair thin faster, and I don't need that. I got good hair for now. I got to keep it.
Yeah. Yeah, fun fight, dude, for sure.
Let's see what we got in the chat, and then we'll move on. Glenbot was talking about the step-in knees. I could see that. Leal much shorter. Won't take much for the knees to come up there. Chidi money line for Londo. Leal is reckless. That's true. Chidi by KO is a lock.
What is that Chidi KO prop? What do we got that at? It is plus 160. That's significantly overpriced according to my model.
Yeah, I don't love that. If you're going to take Chidi, just take the money line, I think. Leal KO round 1. I could see it.
Oh, yeah, and I agree 100%, Mike. 105 on the money line, 160 on the KO.
Yeah, like, come on.
Leal's only been knocked out once. Chidi can win minutes. He can win minutes in the clinch. He can win minutes at kickboxing range. He can stuff takedowns and win minutes that way with his anti-grappling. So, yeah, I mean, I would rather play that money line at plus money at 105 than the KO at 160.
And let's not forget, he dragged Rhys McKee to the finish line, too, all 15 minutes. Literally one of the most hateable guys Jared Gooden too. I love Gooden though. But Rhys McKee, like literally just a punch. That's his thing. Punch me as many times as you can. Get tired doing it, and then I'll win. Yeah. And Chidi still didn't put him away. So I respect Chidi's power, but I wouldn't pay up plus 160 when you can get the money line at plus money.
I'm going to fill up my water, Mike. I'll be right back, man.
Go for it, Weezy. Go ahead and buy. I'm the same way. You already know. Just him saying that has already made me kind of want to play Leal even a little bit more. But I'll move on for now, and then I'll give Weezy his turn when he's back. We got Zach Reese versus Michel Pereira. Zach, is this starting the main card? What a way to start the main card. Zach Reese, he's going to be 10-2-0, 31 years old, 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. Pereira on the other side, 31, 14-0, 32. He's 1 year older, 3 inches shorter, and he's got a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Really tough fight for me. Honestly, I was taping this one today, and I didn't really have much interest in either guy. It wasn't one of those fights where I already had like a preconceived thing of how I'm going to go. But I was kind of thinking like Michel Pereira should win this fight. And when I watch it back, I still feel like he should win this fight. I mean, the guy's talented. You know, you look at his welterweight run when he was still at welterweight. He essentially could have been undefeated. He was essentially, for all intents and purposes, he was undefeated. The Tristan Connolly fight, he lost because he did too many backflips on his way to the octagon. But had he not done those, like he wins that fight every single time they fight. Talking about the Tristan Connolly fight, Weezy, with Pereira. I was saying that in my mind, he was essentially undefeated at welterweight because you take away those backflips on the way to the cage, he's icing Connolly. Yeah. The DQ against the Diego, okay, DQ. And then he just goes on a run. And he's beating guys like Chaos by decision. He's getting good decision wins. Ponzi, I remember the narrative was always, does Pereira have the cardio? Does he have the cardio? And he showed more than one time that he has the cardio. He could go a hard 3 rounds, land over 100 significant strikes. And then he gets to middleweight, and he looks even more like a killer. And I remember going into the Fluffy fight. We'll talk about him later. I love Fluffy. I love those style of guys. I know you do too, Weezy. The Marabs, the Fluffies, the what's his name again? At featherweight. Idiot who got himself subbed by Brito.
Jonathan Pierce.
Yes. Yeah. I love guys like that. And even with all that, I remember going into the Pereira Fluffy fight, I was like, I don't know if I can get to Fluffy because Pereira really looked like he might be the goods. He was coming out there at middleweight and just running through solid dudes. Like Michal Sejchuk cooked him, and look how he's doing now. Could be because Michal finally started training and had a good gym. That could be it too. But now just seeing this losing streak, it's so crazy because the Hernandez fight, okay, like that was probably always going to happen. And then it seems like Hernandez might have just derailed his whole career because the Abus fight, it's like there's 2 possibilities. Either Pereira threw that fight, which it kind of seemed like he did, or he's just completely done and Fluffy really did take the fight out of him because he wasn't himself at all. He wasn't explosive at all. He looked slow. Normally, you see a lot of lateral movement from him as he sets things up. You didn't really see a lot of it. He was slow, plotty, flat-footed, and his chin being up in the sky has always kind of been a problem. But at least, like maybe I'm just noticing it more now. But in his recent fights, he's like this, so he's there to be hit. And the way Dawkins knocked him out, he also kind of just clipped him behind the ear, like we were talking about before with the counter. And it was because Pereira was coming in and he dropped his hands a little bit. And he just got hit. And it's kind of strikes that Reese does every single time. Reese, in my opinion, some of his best work, at least with the hands, is in the pocket. When he's in the pocket, he's pretty fast and he's landing some nice shots. The uppercut is clean. And I do think that if Pereira does something similar like he did against Dawkins, drops those hands a little bit too low when he enters, keeps that chin high, Reese might ice him too. He does have the power for it. I do think he hits very hard. And I think people are hard on him to an extent on Reese because I think his striking is better than people give him credit to. I do like his striking. He's got great kicks. And I think he can compete with Pereira. Even when Pereira's more himself, I think Zach could compete to an extent. But I do think that Pereira is normally a much cleaner striker. I do like his work better overall. I think his kicks, when he's at his best, are absolutely nasty. The body kicks, the teep kicks. And he's just a really athletic, really, at his best, really fast dude. It's just hard. And then With Reese also, though, it's just so hard to trust him. You were talking about some the striking defense of who was it earlier in the card who had horrendous striking
Juliana
defense?
Miller,
Yeah,
39%.
I believe that Zach Reese's might be worse or even to that. I was looking at it today. I was laughing. 39 for Zach Reese.
39.85 overall, but he's 55% at range. So, like, that's actually around the divisional average. It's sometimes when you
So what is that counting? Clinch?
That's counting clinch and ground strikes. So, like, because only at distance striking range, where you're only taking the distance data into effect, he's actually got 55% defense. So he's actually okay when he's at range. It's just when you spend a lot of time being controlled by your opponents underneath guys like Bakoyev, they're landing at a high clip on you.
Yeah. That's another thing that I did want to talk about, the Jackson McVeigh fight. Dude, he was getting cooked. Jackson McVeigh was beating the ever-living daylights out of him. He just pillar to post in the clinch, just destroying him, and then kind of gasses himself out. The fight gets kind of thrown off with the nut shot, and then Reese comes out there, grapples, and gets the finish. But that is a little bit concerning. Pereira's not bad in the clinch. He's not as aggressive as Jackson McVeigh. I think that's a lot of what it was, is McVeigh's so big, and he was just so aggressive, and he just went right for it that I think Reese just did not even see it coming. And before he knew it, he was getting the shit beaten out of him. But I don't love that. Don't love that he can be kind of beaten up pretty hard in the clinch. I don't love his takedown defense. Pereira's not a D1 wrestler. He's not coming from Dagestan, but he can wrestle. He can wrestle pretty well, and he does have some solid jiu-jitsu, and I wouldn't be shocked if he got some takedowns. And I'm not crazy about Reese. I'm not at all. I faded him with Dusko and came dangerously close to cashing that one too. That one hurt a little bit. If Dusko was a little bit smarter and remembered that he can get a takedown very easily, wins that fight. But yeah, for me, it's just tough because it's like, on one hand, I think Pereira can do it, but he's got to be smart and he's got to watch his defense. And I don't know that he's going to do that. And on the other hand, do I really want to put money on Reese? Even though he is younger, he is a lot bigger. He is plus money. He does have a potential for a knockout. I just don't know if I can do it. How about you, Easy?
You know, these guys are pretty much the same age. You know, I mean, you got Zach Reese, 31 years, 10 months, and Michel Pereira, 32 years, 4 months. But Michel Pereira has 34 more professional fights, and he's got 430 more minutes of octagon time as a professional. Well, not octagon time, but cage time, you know, because obviously he had a ton of fights before he came to the UFC. So, yeah, like, you got one guy in Pereira who at 32 years old, he's not old, right? He's still clearly very athletically gifted. He's still in great shape, all this stuff, like, but it looks like he's done. It looks like he's done with the sport. And you start to see that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're 26. If you've got 50 fights, your body starts telling you more and more every morning when you get out of bed, you have to stop doing this, you know, and that might be where Pereira is, you know, like, where is this guy training, by the way, these days?
He's not. He's gaming. You didn't see Weezy?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I mean, like, but is he in Vegas?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
I don't know, man. Like, so, like, this is going to be the biggest stay away on the card for me because on one hand, you know, like, when I write up my fights, one of the things that I do is I rank every fighter in the division, their strength of schedule, the level of opponents that they've went. And then that way I can kind of just compare everybody to each other, you know? And with Zach Reese, I've got him in the 14th percentile, which means, like, you know, 6 out of 7 fighters at the UFC level have fought a tougher strength of schedule than him, while Pereira is in the 63rd percentile, which means that, you know, he's got better strength of schedule than 5 out of 8 random fighters in the UFC. So this is a big step up in competition for Zach Reese. You look at the names that he's been in there. They're like the 5 worst middleweights on the roster, with the exception of Azamat Bakoyev. Jackson McVeigh, who's got like 10 minutes of professional experience. Cedricus Dumas, who's horrible. Dushko Todorovic. Azamat Bakoyev, and then Jose Medina. And before that, it was Brundage. You know,
Brundage killed him.
Yeah, and Brundage even killed him. Yeah, I mean, like, so this is a big step up in competition for Zach Reese. But what the thing we can't handicap because we don't have the information is, does Pereira even give a shit? you know, it's a 3-fight losing streak, and that Hernandez fight obviously broke him. The Abus fight looked like he wasn't even training and didn't care and didn't try. Then he's getting knocked out by a grappler.
He also had a lot of personal stuff happening all at the same time. If you remember, it was kind of crazy. It was, I think, one of the We Want Picks guys. He was at the Apex during the Pereira Fluffy fight, and he posted on social media a clip of who he thought was Pereira's wife because he came with her, and she was like on her phone, and he's like, oh, his wife doesn't even care. She's on her phone. Turns out it's not his wife, and his wife goes on social media, calls him out for cheating and all this stuff, and it just became a whole thing. Cannot imagine that's been easy for him and that he's been able to focus, and it kind of has been showing in his fights. So I do wonder if that has at least part of the decline.
It could be, you know, personal problems, you know, can cause it so that you aren't really doing your work anymore. You know, like if you get a cocaine problem, for instance, chances are your work performance is going to go down. You know, if you're getting divorced, you know, you might be, you know, not showing up to work as much. And it's the same thing with a fighter, you know. You get a substance abuse problem, personal problems, you know, family problems, anything. Like there's a lot.
They're humans still at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like, of course it'd be Jacob from We Want Picks that's breaking up dudes' marriages, you know, like,
and like he did it.
If I gave you 3 picks, he would have been all 3, like, you know, so that's wild, man. I mean, obviously you didn't mean to do that. So
yeah, it was a complete accident and just a crazy story. Also, by the way, you asked for Pereira's training. He's at Extreme Couture.
Okay.
Which is like a good camp, but it's also like, I wonder if it's not a great move for him in particular, just because
Vegas.
And also just like, that's true. And also like, what do all those guys do? They just brawl all the time in their fights and in sparring. And from his clips, I've seen some of his clips, like he's been sparring hard. I don't know if that's the best idea. He just got iced not that long ago by Dawkins. And Reese, in my opinion, probably hits harder than Dawkins. I think Dawkins is a great fighter. I thought that line was stupid. I didn't tape it or bet it because I was on my honeymoon, but I did think that line was stupid. But I didn't think he'd knock him out. I didn't. Me neither. And if he could, I do think Reese could. So I think you have to play the dog if you're going to play anything. But I think I'm just going to not do anything with this fight. We have 14 fights this week, so it's nice. We can kind of just pick and choose.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, they got to make lines. We don't have to bet them.
He was just making a joke, and it's not like on its face, he didn't do anything wrong. He just thought his wife wasn't paying attention to his fight because he was getting ran through. But it just got really crazy. Pereira by MMA math, he really should win. Well, MMA math historically doesn't go very well either. Let's see what else we got. We got Mushroom in the chat. What's up, Mushroom?
Mush, what up?
JB asking about the fight goes the distance. I will lie to you. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it, but I don't want to. Not in this one. If it was plus 400, probably, but not at plus 250. But all right, we can move on. This fight I'm really excited to talk about. We have Jacobe Smith versus Josiah Harrell. Smith, he's going to be 11-0 undefeated, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Harrell on the other side, also 11-0 undefeated, 27. He's 3 years younger. 5'7", he's 3 inches shorter and very short for the division. And he's got a 67-inch reach, which is, I believe, the reach of a lot of women's strawweights and flyweights, which is not great.
68-inch reach, according to UFC stats. He got that extra inch. He's growing. The young man's growing.
That's a little better. But so I'll start us off for this one. I'm hyped to talk about it because if you guys aren't familiar, if you're listening now and you're not familiar with Harrell, he's a guy who was supposed to be in the UFC. He was supposed to come in and fight JDM. I believe it was a short notice opportunity also. We're talking 2023, I think. And he comes in, he does the medicals because they all have to go through them, make sure they're healthy. And they catch a terrible brain disease, I think it was, in his brain, which he had no idea about, wasn't showing any other symptoms as far as he knew. And had he not done that, had he not gotten that opportunity, who knows what would have happened, God forbid. So thank everything that, you know, he got checked out. He got that surgery. He was healthy. It worked out. And look at him. He came back, ran, I think it was 4 fights in a row he had. He won all of them. He finished, I think, 3 of 4. And he gets another opportunity. And I think he can actually win this one. Against JDM, I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. But Jacobe right now in this stage of his career, I think he's a beatable guy. And I think that Hurrell is a guy who could beat him. You know, I look at Jacobe and I see a guy who, fantastic wrestler, comes from Oklahoma State, great wrestling program. He's extremely athletic. He's built like a marble statue. The dude is just absolutely shredded. And he's pretty good everywhere. You can tell he's super athletic and he's able to pick these things up very quickly. He's new to striking, but he's improving every fight. His striking looks better. But the problem with him is every movement he has is extremely, like, he puts everything he has into it. Even his jab, he's putting every ounce of his being into his jab. And he's getting tired. He's getting tired. He beat the daylights out of Nico Price. And Nico Price is giving no resistance. And he's exhausted. At the end of the first round, Jacobe Smith is really, really tired. Lucky for him, Nico Price was also exhausted. And also at the tail end of his career, if we can even call it that. I mean, he's done. Baratenikov put him out on the feet. So, and even Jacobe Smith's fights prior to that, you know, you see almost every time, if he doesn't finish early, and since getting to the UFC, the only early finish was this one, Preston Parsons, he slows down. And while he is a really good wrestler, and he does come from a great wrestling background, so far in MMA, the control hasn't quite been there, right? Even in the Contender Series, that guy is not very good. Savoy, I think it was his name. He had to take him down 7 times. Why? Because he couldn't hold him down. The guy kept popping back up. And you go even further, you know, there's he fought, I think it was Bevon Lewis's brother. It's a little bit further back. That was the last fight that he had that went to decision. He was exhausted in that one too. He was still able to pull through there. He's the better fighter, clearly, but he got really tired. And Josiah Hurrell is not a guy you want to get tired about against. Now, there is a concern people have been talking about, you know, he's coming in on short notice. How's that going to be? And personally, I'm not super concerned with him in particular, just because historically, he does have very good cardio. And I'm pretty sure he fought very recently, a month ago. So I imagine he's still in shape. And the other thing is he's not cutting much weight at all. He talks about it. He's like, I could go to 155 if I wanted to. And you can see that. He's 5'7" as a welterweight. So if he's not cutting a lot of weight, I know that's not going to mean his cardio is fantastic for sure, but it's going to mean that he's not draining himself. He's not completely killing himself to make the weight within 1 week and, you know, be able to get there to the fight. So I think he's going to be okay. And will he get taken down? I'm almost certain that he's going to get taken down at least once or twice, maybe even more. But I think he's going to scramble up pretty much every time. He scrambles really, really well. You see that in his last fight where another solid dude, Desmatov, took him down early on. And even early on, wasn't really able to hold him down. And because Hurrell was threatening subs and working back to his feet and scrambling back up, he was able to tire Desmatov down and just broke him. And he will put it on, guys. Is he the cleanest striker ever? No. Jacobe Smith, definitely better technique. Seems like he hits a lot harder too. And Hurrell's reach is really short, so he's really limited. He does have to close that distance. He's got to get up close. But once like early on, Smith, yeah, he looks very explosive, very technical on the feet. Work in progress, though. But as he slows down, he starts to look a little bit clunkier on the feet, a little bit slower, a little bit more plotty. And I think that's when Hurrell can start to have success by just closing the distance and just throwing. And I think that's what he's going to do. So I think this is dog or pass for sure on a money line perspective. You don't have to bet it. I just wouldn't bet Jacobe Smith at minus, I guess it's minus 250 now. Even that I don't love. Just because I do think all around he's a better fighter. I think he has a higher ceiling, but the cardio is a problem. I think it is going to cost him at some point, and I think Hurrell is a guy who can get the upset here. So I like Hurrell, and I'm also rooting for him. I'm admittedly biased because I love his story. I think it's awesome, and I really do hope he can come in here and get the win. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, it's definitely possible because this guy's good. I mean, he's really good. One of the things I think that I'm not going to hear a lot of people talk about this week about Harrell is the fact that he looks like he's waiting in line at the DMV when he's in there. He looks so comfortable in the cage, and his conditioning is probably elite. I mean, like, he starts slow. You look at a lot of these fights, the first round isn't going great for him in a lot of these fights that are available to watch because most of them are in something called Ohio Combat League. I don't even think you can find those. Did you find any of those fights?
So most of them were behind a paywall. The only one, the most I was able to watch the Desmatov fight, And then
that was an LFA fight, though.
Yeah, and then like 3 fights before that, I think I was able to watch.
There was a CFFC fight and another LFA fight against somebody named like Mike Roberts, or what was his name? Mike Roberts.
That's the
Mike
fight.
Roberts.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, like the Roberts fight, the first round was close. The Reader fight, Reader kicked his ass in the first round. And Dosmatov won the first round of that fight, you know. And I've got a couple people that I know over at VFS here in Chicago. They were talking about this guy Dosmatov before the Harrell fight. And they're like, you know, what they told me was like, this guy's got heavy top pressure. When he gets on top of you, he stays there and he lands good ground and pound. And he was going for it. And he won like the first half of that fight. I'd say like the first 6.5, 7 minutes, he won. Mm-hmm. But Harrell doesn't get tired because he's not overwhelmed in there. He keeps a really good pace, but in that second round, he starts to roll downhill. And if you let him start rolling downhill, he's gonna get you out of there. He's got great pace. He gets on top, he lands shots. He's very aggressive with his submissions when you take him down, and he'll start putting the pressure on you in the second half of the fight. So when he winds up in top position, he's really good there. And we just, you know, like Jacobe Smith is one of these athletes that, you know, has got a super high ceiling, but he's got to prove it to you, you know. And that Nico Price fight is what everyone's going to be talking about this week, because he looked dead in the second round. But once he got the takedown and he was on top of him, he didn't look tired anymore. He just easily finished him with ground and pound. So I wonder if he's one of these guys that can fight through being tired a little bit. But the thing that we do know is that when you're as explosive as he is, when you're as athletic as he is, when you're as powerful as he is, and when you wrestle as much as he is, even if you do have great conditioning, it's impossible to push that pace for the full 15 minutes. So this feels like Jacobe Smith early, Josiah Harrell late, but you're getting a line like Smith's going to run through this dude. So I tend to agree. I think Harrell has got a lot of value at plus 200 or better this week.
Yeah, I agree. Like, in terms of a pick purposes of the show, yeah, I'm going Smith. I do think he's the more talented fighter. I do think he's got a higher ceiling, but we're talking bets here. Talking bets, and right. I think Harrell's the betting side. I will say, my guy Raw Torque over here saying Harrell plus 3.5. Like, you'll probably get a decent line, yeah, but you're paying up and you're getting less value, and Smith could knock him out theoretically. Like, Harrell hasn't fought a hitter like him. While I do think Harrell's very durable, I can't count out Smith not knocking him out, because Smith does hit really hard. He's a very explosive guy. So I would rather the money line than the plus 3.5. But we can move on. Next up, we've got, oh boy, Sergey Spivak versus Ante Delia. Spivak, he's going to be 17-6-0. 31 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. On the other side, Delia, 26-7-0. He's 35, so he's 4 years older. Going to be the same height and going to have the same reach. Weezy, why don't you start us off for this one? Who you got?
Great heavyweight fight here. I'm looking forward to this one. I like Delia's pressure on the feet. He's got unusually fast hands for a heavyweight. He's not like some plodding, slow heavyweight. He weighs in around 235. He gets in that pocket, and he puts together combinations. He doesn't throw one punch at a time when he's doing his best work. But, you know, you look at Spivak's recent performances, and they're actually not bad. You know, if you look at the most recent fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta, that fight could have went either way. And
I thought he won.
Yeah, man, that was anybody's fight. Either one of those guys could have won that fight. He lost to Jailton Almeida, but was looking good until he got caught there. He beats Tabora. He has one of the worst performances of all time against Gane, but, you know, he ran through Derek Lewis, Sakai, Greg Hardy. We can forgive him for the Aspinall loss. And before the Aspinall loss, he was on a 3-fight win streak. So, you know, you throw away like the Gane and the Aspinall losses, and you realize that this guy's been fighting at a decently high level. He's still very young. And if he gets into top position, dude, he is a menace. So, you know, Spivak's got paths here. I think he's going to be able to keep the distance striking exchanges close. I think that if he gets into the clinch against Ante, he might be able to find a takedown and get to a somewhat dominant position. And if he does that, he's definitely going to be live to finish the fight on the mat. But if the fight stays standing, Delia's pressure and his pocket boxing is really fucking good. And we've never really seen Sergey do anything but maybe win minutes just slightly at distance striking range. He's just not dangerous enough there to where he can keep the exchanges close, but we can't really count on him to win minutes and bank rounds with his boxing. So I feel like that this line is, about Delia 60%, Spivak 40%, because if Spivak does have grappling success in 2 out of the 3 rounds, he can easily win this fight. But if he doesn't, I could see Delia winning the minutes, banking the rounds, or obviously finding a KO, because the guy has got a ton of power. So coming off that last loss to Waldo both of these guys are coming off a loss to Waldo. So one of these guys has got to bounce back. But I think Spivak's recent run actually looks a lot worse than what it is. If you look at the level of competition, Gane, Tabura, Gilton, and Waldo Cortez Acosta in his last 4 fights, and he arguably went 2-2 over that stretch, and he didn't even train for the Gane fight. He was like, yeah, I got married a couple weeks before, didn't train for the fight, which was just ridiculous, because if he could have taken down Gane, he might have been able to win that fight.
Imagine that timeline.
I know, right? That would be, yeah.
He's the one who eye pokes Tom Aspinall. And we get Spivak versus Alex Pereira at the White House.
Oh, that is a crazy timeline. But
yeah, we've been robbed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to probably pick Delia for this fight, but there's paths to victory for both guys here, and I think Spivak's being just a little bit underrated. But I kind of feel like Delia should be minus 200, so maybe the market knows something that we don't about Sergey maybe getting takedowns, or maybe the level of his grappling is growing, because he's still only 30 years old, right? 31.
Yeah, the line movement has surprised me a little bit. Not necessarily because I don't think it's warranted, but just because I thought people are so low on him. I thought everybody's done with him after the Waldo fight. And
yeah,
if we're being real, the Gilton loss wasn't a bad loss, because Gilton is a great fighter. It's just now we're all supposed to hate Gilton. Honestly, I feel terrible that he got cut. I feel like that was not the right move, because he's an elite fighter.
Yeah, he is.
He's a little bit limited. He got to the top of the division and he struggled a bit. I'm assuming they were probably paying him too much because they had just re-signed him for a new contract. I'm assuming they just kind of gave him too much money and were like, hell no, not after that last performance. But it's just kind of crappy. But either way, I don't think that's a bad loss for Spivak. Now, the Waldo fight, Waldo's a great fighter, and look at him. He's on a run of his own, but it's like, has Waldo fought since?
Yeah, he just beat Derek Lewis, didn't he?
Right. Yeah. I was just wondering about that. Yeah. So that Waldo fight, I had money on Spivak, and biased, but I felt like he won, but he could have won that a lot more clearly. He was fighting pretty stupid. He was kind of just plodding forward, chasing Waldo, not really throwing a ton, and then not really shooting. Not really shooting as much as he should have. Because Waldo, he does not have a ground game. He really doesn't. He's still a boxer. And Spivak didn't even really try all that hard. So, and when he did get the takedowns, he had a good amount of success. And like you said, he has great ground and pound. He has good jiu-jitsu. He's a very dangerous guy on the ground and a good wrestler. But the fight IQ seems to be a little bit of a problem. And he does wilt a little bit. He does wilt when he's a great hammer, bad nail.
Yeah. And
Delia is a guy who will put you out if you're that way, because he will make you uncomfortable. And he has every single fight since he got to the UFC. Tybura just backed him right up and got him out of there. Waldo backed him right up, got him out of there, and then the whole thing happened. I remember that fight. I had money on Waldo, and we were at a friend's house, so I was watching on my phone. And when I saw Delia knock out Waldo, I was like, oh, okay, we lost. Put the phone down for a second. I'll update the guys in a moment. And I talked to my friends, and then I looked back at my phone, and the fight's back on, and Waldo knocks him out. And I was like, holy crap. And that was just crazy also, because poor Delia, he was excited. He was celebrating after he thought he won, dumped all his adrenaline, and then gets knocked down in his own right. But realistically, Delia is also a guy who I think people are overrating him a little bit. Like, I've been watching him for a long time because I was a big PFL guy. Used to bet on it every single time there was a card. Not as much these days, but D'Elia was a guy who I've taped many, many times before he even got to the UFC, and he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's big. He's strong. Like you said, for his build, he shouldn't be that good in the pocket, but he is.
Yeah,
his boxing is nice. He's got good speed for such a big man. He's very fast, but he also fades really hard in fights. His cardio is not the greatest. He does fade. He can get stuck on his back at times. The Capoloza fights in the PFL, I did not love those for him. Capoloza's a blown-up light heavyweight who didn't want to cut weight anymore, and PFL was doing that. They were bringing up a bunch of light heavyweights and putting them in the heavyweight tournament. Didn't love those performances, and D'Elia's only gotten older. He didn't get any younger. Now he's 35. So I do have my concerns with him, and like we have this guy Londo over here saying, why are people betting Spivak? I don't think I'm going to, but I can understand why. He does have a clear path here if he wrestles, and I think D'Elia's most dangerous in that first round, and if he survives that, it's going to be an easier fight to win. Not necessarily he's going to win it if he survives, but it'll be easier for him to do that. And I personally think this fight's probably closer to a pick'em. I just don't really want money on Spivak when I think there's a very solid chance that D'Elia runs in there. He's got a chip on his shoulder now because of the whole thing with Waldo, and he just gets Spivak out of there right away. So I'm probably going to pass. I'll pick D'Elia for the reasons I just said. I don't really want to trust Spivak there, but I don't think I'm going to have money on this one.
Agreed. Me too. I think same thing with me. D'Elia is the pick, but I feel like I'm just going to stay away.
We don't got to bet them all, guys. We don't got to bet them all. All right, next up, we've got Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa. I believe this is the co-main. No, it's not the co-main. Almost there, though. Dan Ige, 19-10-0, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Melky, 25-7-0. He's 29, so he's 5 years younger. He's going to be 3 inches taller, and he's going to have about the same reach. I'll start us off here. If this is Ige a couple years ago, I mean, it's a no-brainer at this number. Plus 180, plus 170. Like, you play Ige. But at this point, I can't do it. Because even at his best, Ige was always a poor minute winner. He was never a great minute winner. He's a moment winner. He's got crazy power. He's super tough. He'll go through the worst moments you'll give him, and then he'll bring them back even worse. But he's not a guy who's winning minute by minute in the fights. He's a guy who has to usually come back and get it done. The Woodson fight, recent example, I was on him there. That was a very stressful experience and probably a early stoppage as well. But that's my thing with him, is even at his best of times, he was always a bad minute winner. And I do think we're starting to get to the point where maybe it's okay to say that Ige is washed. I know he's not the oldest man. He's 34, but he's taken a lot of damage, a lot of damage. And he's been in a lot of wars. Again, he's not a guy who's super defensively sound. He's not a Khabib who doesn't get hit. He gets hit a lot. And I know he's been super durable, but we all know eventually that stuff goes. And he might get knocked out at some point. I don't know if it's going to be Melky with the kicks. I think maybe it'll take somebody with more boxing, but I do think eventually Ige, if he keeps fighting, he will probably get knocked out. And I just haven't loved the recent form. The Pitbull fight, it just looked like he had no urgency whatsoever, no response whatsoever for the grappling. And I have all the respect for Pitbull, but he's another guy who's really way past his prime at this point, and it's okay to lose to him. But to lose to him in that way, I don't love that. And then with Costa, he's a guy who's the opposite. Like, the momentum is there. I bet against him in his last fight with Yadier, and then he just iced him. And he's been looking great. I do have concerns with him. I do think that he slows down in fights. I do think that his cardio is not the greatest. I do think that his fight IQ isn't the greatest. And it's not like he's an elite wrestler. He's a solid wrestler. He's probably will get Ige down if he tries. It's also entirely possible that he doesn't try. It's possible that he comes in here and just tries to strike with Ige, where in that case, I don't know that I'm super confident in Costa, because, the kicks are good and his hands are pretty good too, but he's not throwing them a lot. He's throwing mostly kicks. And if Ige's just closing that kicking range, which he's likely going to do, he does pressure forward most of the time. If he's doing that, going body, head, doing his thing, I think he can catch Costa, whether it's a knockout or steal moments and win the rounds. I think he could do it, but I think Costa's going to probably try to mix everything together, and I think you just can't get in front of him in a spot like this. 29-year-old, 5-fight winning streak, completely different trajectory against a guy who, as great as he has been, seems to be on the decline and seems to be just about done. So I don't think I'm looking to fade Costa here. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, I remember having Ige, I think, in my greasy 4-leg parlay in the Pitbull fight. And, after watching that, I was like, okay, I'm never fucking betting on this guy again. That was one of the worst performances. Because, not only was that a dog shit performance by Ige, but, it was coming off of Pitbull being totally fucking done. And maybe one of the worst performances I've ever seen in the Yadier fight. He didn't even try to wrestle.
Horrible.
He looked completely fucking mystified out there. And, to lose to that guy is bad. A blown up bantamweight who's old and, shot. Ige was a favorite in that fight and didn't cover it. Now, I remember I was thinking they're going 3 units. I'm like, he's going to knock this guy out, and he could probably even win minutes against Pitbull because Pitbull doesn't do jack shit. But Pitbull, walked him down and made him look like he was completely done for. So I think Melky's going to toy with him at range, dude. His kicks are so much better than Ige's. He's 3 inches taller. He's going to be able to use that kicking range, and he throws a lot more volume than Ige does, and he's got power in his own right. The Julian Erosa fight was tricky for Costa because Erosa is so big and long, but you don't have to worry about that with Ige. And knocking out Morgan Charrier, who had never been knocked out in something like 32 professional fights, that's really impressive. And I don't know if a lot of people probably don't remember the ass whooping he put on Austin Lingo, but if you want to watch a dude put on a master class of kickboxing, he's landing to the legs, to the body, to the head. He's throwing with both legs. He's switching stances. This guy is going to toy with Ige. Ige really needs to just walk forward, pressure relentlessly, and just look to land that big right hand, because if he doesn't, he's just going to get picked apart here. And there's really no offensive wrestling upside on the Ige side either. So I even feel like if Melky wants to grapple, he could probably do that if he ever gets sick of Ige's pressuring here. So, yeah, I want to be careful, though, because Ige is going from a sizable -220 favorite against Pitbull to being, almost plus 200 here against Melky. So it's a big reduction in price. But another thing that I told you, I've been ranking the strength of schedules for these fighters. And even though Ige has a lot more fights, when you just look at the metric that I created, Costa's 79th percentile and Ige is 76th. And it's because it matches up the wins, and it looks how good your wins are, and it looks how good and experienced on average your opponents are. So I found it odd, really, that Costa had a similar strength of schedule rating than Ige. And I trust that rating to because I've eyed it in every single division that I've run these rankings, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So I think that this is a great Costa spot. He's got all the momentum. He's younger. He's got the better long-range weapons. I think he's got more paths to victory here. And Ige is coming off a career worst performance against a guy who's absolutely shot.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring up this. People were talking about the Costa sub. I don't hate it. I had it you were talking about it, the Lingo fight. I had sub, I think, plus 800 or 900. And the whole fight, he's not even really thinking about it. And then he gets damn close. I forget if it was round 2 or round 3. And I was like, bro, please. And he didn't come through, but maybe. I don't hate that. Ige's a tough guy to put away, but maybe a club and sub. I could see a club and sub maybe.
Well, he's going to have to catch him with something, because that's the way you're going to get Ige. I don't think you're going to one-punch knock him out, but if you drop him and then just start raining down ground and pound, that could be the way.
Yeah. It's crazy seeing a 10 on the losing side of the record for Ige.
Yeah, I know, dude. 9 UFC losses. Yeah, I mean, the guy's 11-9 in the UFC. He's doesn't have a ton of upside if he's not bonking you,
He's always left to bonk, though. Almost got Lerone Murphy out of there.
Yeah, that's right, dude. This guy can knock anybody out. So that's the thing about this fight. That's why it's dangerous to lay the juice on Costa, because that Ige can clip you with one shot and change the trajectory of the fight.
Yep. All right, we can move on. I think we've agreed for pretty much everything, Weezy.
Yeah, we have, which is scary.
And I don't know if we're going to disagree here. I guess it's possible. We got Jeff Neal versus Uros Medic. Neal, 16-7-0, 35 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. Medic, 12-3-0, 32. He's going to be 3 years younger, going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach disadvantage. I'll start us off just because I haven't fully looked into this one yet. This is one of the ones I've been waiting on, just because I think I might have interest on Neal, but also the line's been blowing out, so I decided to focus on the closer line stuff first, or fights where I thought I had an angle.
Mm-hmm.
But pre-tape for me, I do lean pretty heavily towards Jeff Neal. Of course, Medic can maybe knock him out. At this point, Neal's chin has been cracked. He could be hurt, but like Pratesh is putting away a lot of guys who, you know, don't normally get put away. Like the Leon Edwards knockout, like dude is on a run right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Medic hits hard, but I don't know that he hits like Pratesh, and I don't think he does. And he doesn't set things up as nicely as Pratesh either. He's not as sharp as Pratesh. And I just think he's another guy who's a good hammer and a horrible, horrible nail. He cannot handle adversity well. He doesn't. And Jeff Neal, I mean, he gave Shafkat everything he can handle when they fought. I know that was a couple years back at this point, and maybe he's on a decline of his own, but this dude's tough, and he's fought some of the best guys, and he hits very hard. I think he's also got a lot of power. Both of them do. I think that Uros' chin is worse than Neal's. I'm pretty confident in saying that. I don't think he can take a shot as well as him. Later in the fight, I trust Neal a million times more. Cardio is clearly more proven. Medic still hasn't been to a decision. He looked okay against Semmelsberger in round 3, but it's kind of Semmelsberger versus Jeff Neal, very big difference. And the other thing is Neal could probably wrestle if he wanted to. I know that's not his primary game plan, but he could wrestle. And Uros Medic doesn't have much takedown defense. He pops back up pretty quickly. I'll give him that. But again, that's when he's fresh. Once he starts to slow down a little bit more, not as much. So for me, it's going to be Neal pre-tape, and I expect it to stay around the same after I do tape. Who knows? How about you, Weezy?
Yeah, southpaw versus southpaw matchup, you know, so when that's tricky. That's going to really favor the more technical striker. And I mean, you got to put that on Neal, right? I mean, obviously Medic is an elite striker for the division. That's what he does really, really well, is he can fucking knock you out. But Jeff Neal's got serious power. And I mean, like the level of competition that he's been in there against is night and day compared to Uros Medic. My strength of schedule metric has Jeff Neal at 90% in a division that has almost 100 fighters in it, and Uros Medic at 43rd percentile. So, like, obviously, you know, Jeff Neal has just fought everybody in the division. That's an absolute killer. Then the list of losses that this guy has on his record reads like a top 5 of the division. You know, Carlos Prates, Ian Machado Gary, Shavkat Rachmanov, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and then coming off the sepsis thing and the cocaine addiction, he lost a clinch war to Neil Magny, which was by far the worst loss of his career. But, you know, he's got a win over Bilal Muhammad. You know, he's got a win over Mike Perry, Luque and Ponzinibbio. So I think that this is too much too soon for Uros Medic. And the fact that Neal's a lefty, I think that's going to mess him up too. You know, but the thing is that if Uros can get his jab going, because it is southpaw versus southpaw, that could be something where he kind of forces Neal to maybe crash the pocket a little bit more than he normally would, because he is going to be at a little bit of I think they're listed at similar reaches here. Yeah, it's weird. Neal actually has a 75-inch reach, but Medic has a 71. But when you look at the shoulder width, you realize that it's all there from Neal. You know, it's not there for Medic. Medic is a lot more neural, you know, so I think he's going to have the longer arms and have the better long-range weapons with kicks and with the jab. But Jeff Neal's just fought at a much, much higher level here. And I think that this kind of a step down in competition is where you usually see these guys get their record back intact and get a win.
Raw Torque saying Neal round 2-3. Could be like maybe if Neal's like a little bit more cautious now because he just got knocked out, maybe. But I can also see these guys just cooking each other right away.
Yeah, so and I mean, like Medic got sparked by a southpaw in Soriano in the first round.
Big overhand. 2-leg parlay, Costa money line under 2.5. Neal Medic. I personally don't play chalky totals just because I have terrible experience with them, both unders and total and overs. If it's chalk, I'm losing.
Dude. Especially when I beat the line movement. If it's chalk and I got it at -200 and it closed at -350, just tear up the ticket.
No, I hate getting CLV, dude.
Yeah, CLV on totals is like the biggest curse I've ever seen.
And under 1.5s, I also hate. I'm just terrible at them. I recently made an exception, and I did it for the Waldo fight, Waldo Lewis.
Oh, okay.
And of course, not even close, not even close. 1 minute passes after the under passes and knockout.
Yeah.
I was like, never again. No more under 1.5s. No more of that. But all right, we can move on to our main event. Great matchup. I think UFC did a great job with this one. It low-key could still turn out boring and everybody's going to be mad, but I think it's a great fight. We have Sean Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez. Strickland, he's going to be 29-7-0, 34 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. Hernandez, 15-2-0, 32. He's 2 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's giving up 1 inch in reach. Weezy, what are you thinking here?
I like fluffy here. The thing about Strickland that bothers me stylistically in this matchup is that he doesn't show a lot of urgency, you know? And I think that in order to beat Hernandez, you really kind of got to get him out of there because it's really, really, really hard to win minutes against Anthony Hernandez because you're constantly defending. You know, he's offering 13.7 distance strike attempts per minute, which is 3.3 more than the divisional average. But what really hurts is that he's attempting 13.4 takedowns per 15 minutes. And the divisional average for takedown accuracy is around 35, 36%. This guy gets his takedowns at 48% clip. You know, that's going to be very difficult to deal with. You know, Strickland is a guy who wins minutes at distance striking range, and he's good at keeping his fights at distance striking range. But he's just like out of this guy's like last 13 or 14 fights, he's seen more than 2 takedown attempts in a fight only twice. You know, he's going to see more takedown attempts in the first round against Hernandez than he's probably seen, you know, in his last 5 fights combined with, if you were to throw away the Drickus fight when he attempted 11 in 5 rounds. So, and people see 11 takedown attempts and they're like, dude, Strickland, you know, 11 takedown attempts. He did really well. Dude, that's a 5-round fight. That's 2.2 takedown attempts per fight. You know,
DDP's also just not a wrestler.
And he's not a wrestler and he's not a top time grappler. You know, I mean, Hernandez can continue to go to that over and over and over again. And his striking has always been serviceable. He's extremely hittable, but he's got a brick for a head. You're not knocking this guy out to the head. And even if you could, I don't know if Strickland's the one to do it. So I think Strickland's going to be defending a lot here. I just think he's going to be defending. And unless he's getting up every damn time, I just think that what's going to happen is Hernandez is going to take him down. Strickland's going to get back up. He's going to take him down again. He's going to get back up, but then he's going to just get that rear seatbelt grip. And he's just going to wear on him in the clinch. He's going to make Sean carry his weight. And Sean's going to have to fight at a pace that he just has not even come close to fighting at. For his entire middleweight career, he's been fighting low grappling output fights where he's throwing jab, teep, and maintaining distance and barely winning minutes even when he does. So I just don't think he fights on too thin of margins to wind up winning minutes and banking rounds in the judge's eyes against one of the highest paced fighters in any division. This is the middleweight Merab. He really is. And as dangerous as Merab is as a bantamweight, if you can wrestle like Merab at middleweight, it's twice as effective. These guys don't have the same kind of conditioning and ability to be able to combat that pace in this division. So I think that this is a really bad matchup for Sean Strickland. He doesn't have enough power, and I don't think he's going to be able to make Hernandez tired, make him stop wrestling. And if he's unable to do that, I just think he's going to be wearing this dude's weight, and Hernandez is going to be chipping away, looking for submission attempts and just winning the minutes here. So I like Hernandez by decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what's going on with my. All right, maybe that's a little better. But so there are two things I wanted to talk about. Strickland's a super popular underdog this week. We're all seeing that now, and I can understand it. I get it. Theoretically, this is a tough match, not a tougher stylistic matchup for Fluffy because he does have solid takedown defense and he himself has good cardio, right? So I can understand, and the line is crazy, but two things for me. First off, I'm so sick and tired of this weak to the body narrative, Wheezy. We've been hearing about this stupid weak to the body narrative since Kevin Holland got that knockout. It literally has not happened since, and it continues to go. I heard it with Delitse. Delitse has nasty body kicks. He's going to put them away. I heard it with, I don't think I heard it with Alden.
Not with Alden, but with Pereira for sure. Because Pereira just come off of getting a KO to Oleg Sejcik's body.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he got a sub. He finished with a sub, but he hurt him bad to the body first.
Pereira, Kopylov, and that one made sense because Kopilov's a nasty kicker. I feel like if anyone was going to take advantage of this alleged weak body, it would have been Kopylov, and he didn't. Neither did Shabazian, another great striker, good kicker. So it's like, when are we going to let it go? You ever see that meme of the backpack that's like ripping and it's just like, let it go?
Yeah.
Like, let's let that narrative go. The other thing is I'm seeing a lot of talk about how Sean is got great takedown defense and scrambling. Against who? Against who? Because he's not seeing a lot of takedown attempts. Dricus was the only one in recent history who's done a lot of takedown attempts on him. And Dricus still took him down 6 times in that first fight. And that probably won him that fight. And again, Dricus, phenomenal fighter, former champion, but he's not a grappler. He's not Anthony Hernandez in the grappling. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And before that, you have Abus, who shot on him and got 1 takedown. And then before that, to see people proactively trying to grapple him, you have to go to Kamaru Usman years ago. When he fought Brendan Allen, maybe we could have gotten an answer there, but Brendan Allen, that's when he fell in love with that striking that we were talking about.
Did.
And he lost himself that fight. I believe I had money on Brendan Allen, that dumb. But I just wanted to mention those two things because I feel like a lot of people are making a lot of their pitch for Strickland based on that. And I just feel like it's kind of easy to poke holes in that. I feel like a better argument would probably be just if he can keep this on the feet, he's probably got the cardio to compete. And he is clearly the better striker. We can all acknowledge that. But I think you also have to acknowledge, like, the first time Peter Yan and Merab fought, right? Who was the better striker? Very clearly Peter Yan. And we found out again that that's the case. But he struggled with Merab a lot. You could say he had that injury. Okay, sure. But I think the other problem was Merab shot 40 takedowns. He didn't get them, but he started to use them as a form of feint, and that allowed him to compete on the feet. And I think Peter Yan's a more dangerous striker than Sean Strickland. So if Hernandez isn't feeling that threat and he's threatening the takedown and Strickland has to worry about it, I'm not convinced that Hernandez doesn't compete on the feet here. I think that he probably does. And I do think he's going to go get those takedowns. And I think, like you said, I think against the cage, he's going to get that seatbelt. And I think he can control him for a good portion of the fight there too. Now, I do want to clarify, I'm not betting Fluffy at -300. If you forced me to take a money line, I probably would take the Strickland money line. But I'm also allowed to not bet a money line. I could pass or I could bet other things. I like the fight goes or the overs. I like those. I don't really see Strickland breaking. Like Hernandez has been breaking these guys. I don't think he's going to break Strickland. I think this guy is tough as nails, and I think you have to maybe hit Strickland upside the head with like 4 hammers to get him out of there. I don't know if even that's going to be enough. So I don't think Hernandez is going to break him. I don't think he's going to finish him. Maybe he subs him late. It's possible because that pace is really ridiculous, but I lean towards no. And I don't think Strickland's going to stop Hernandez either. Even if he wins, I don't think he's going to knock him out or anything. So I think that's probably a better way to play it personally. The fight goes, but I can understand Strickland plays. I do get it.
Yeah, agreed, man. Like it's a wide line, and we know that Strickland has fought the better brand of competition, but he just hasn't seen a style like this. And Hernandez, if we had ever seen Hernandez get tired, well, then yeah, maybe I can get to a Strickland bet. But I mean, like, I think that this guy is going to be the fresher fighter in the 5th round of this fight, unless he's injured, unless he's coming into this fight compromised. I don't see a world where Sean's going to show better cardio than Hernandez. So how does he win this fight? It's going to be really hard when he's constantly defending takedowns.
I guess there's one thing that could be weird. I saw someone mention this and it made me think. Fluffy talks about all the time, right? How he's always on marijuana. He's always high, whether it's edibles or whatever. The Texas Commission still tests for THC. So this entire week, he can't be on it. He's got to be sober.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I know for a fact that when you do it every single day for essentially your whole life since you start, stopping like that cold turkey, it's going to mess with you. It's going to mess with your sleep. It's going to mess with a lot of things. And that would be a really crazy reason to lose a title eliminator. But
yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. And yeah, this guy is constantly high, and that's crazy too, that if this guy's like, especially if he's smoking, to have that kind of cardio as a smoker, I mean, it goes to show you that some people, like they're just born with that third lung. You probably had a friend when you were growing up that just never got tired when they were running, and you're like, how the fuck are they doing that? But he's just one of those guys, dude. He's got some kind of genetic mutation that allows him to be able to fight at a pace that's just unsustainable.
It's crazy because we were comparing him to Merab, but like Merab's like as clean as possible. He's probably never smoked weed in his entire life.
Yeah.
You got Fluffy just always clapped.
Yeah, like you ever seen a Fluffy interview? They're the worst interviews ever. Like he's got no personality. He's wasted during the interview. You could tell his eyes are just like, they're barely open. He's just chiefing all day. So he's just really good at fighting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm rooting for him, but I won't have money on his money line. That's for sure. I'm good on the -300.
Yeah, it's wide. It's wide.
But all right, guys, that's it. That's UFC Houston. Hopefully we keep all of these fights because that would be phenomenal. We'll have a great card on Saturday. I'll pass the mic to Weezy in a sec, and then we'll hop on out of here. We're just about 2 hours, 10 o'clock. Not bad. For me, in terms of content, I believe this is it for the week. Outside of the shorts, I will be putting up the YouTube shorts probably closer to Friday, but I've been going back to I've been doing them again. If you're not familiar, I do 1-minute breakdowns for every single fight on every single card. I've recently crossed the 1,000 shorts mark, so I've done it over 1,000 times at this point. Talk pretty fast, so it works to an extent, but sometimes I'll get people in the comments like, why didn't you mention this? Why didn't you talk about this? Dude,
60 seconds.
I have 60 seconds to tell you what the fight is, when it's happening, and then break it down. So it's like, I don't have a lot of time. But look out for those if you like the short form content, and I will put up timestamps for anybody watching this later. Weezy, thank you so much for coming on. Let the people know what you got going on.
Yeah, you can find me on X at MMA Weezy. You can find me on YouTube at Uncle Weezy. You can also find me on Rumble at the same name. And my $25 probability stats and content package on oddshopper.com is the best way to support my work. You get individual fighter stats that are like literally so far past anything else that you're going to find out there for the price. Matchup stats, over-under betting model, prop betting model, access to Discord, access to very, very in-depth fight write-ups on every fight. And you get my full card breakdown and my 2-hour prop betting show, which are not available for free on YouTube. So if you want to get access to a treasure trove of UFC information, stats, benchmarks, models, check me out on oddshopper.com. Then thanks for having me on, Mike. Let's stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for this UFC Houston card. It's going to be a really good one from top to bottom, man.
Great card. All right, guys. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Peace out and good luck this weekend.